Today, we're going to talk about the Tier 7 Pan European Destroyer Split, which is available in early access currently. And next update, it should become fully available and released to the game for everybody to grind. It's the Tier 7 of a new gunboat focused line of Pan European destroyers, which begins at Tier 4 and culminates at Tier 8. Of course, we cannot get the Tier 8 until the line comes out of early access. So for now, the highest tier we have to look at is the Split. And this thing has some unique properties that will definitely set it apart from the original Pan-European destroyer line, which is much more torpedo focused, although some of those ships do have pretty good guns. The Split, though, in that department knocks the rest of them out of the water, and this is going to be a bit of a Kraken performance in the Split. In the 1930s, the Yugoslav Navy ordered a large destroyer based on Fantasque named Split after the city where she was built. That's according to the overview page on this thing. What it essentially is a Fantasque, except it's got smoke. It's not quite as fast as Fantasque. It doesn't have the excellent AP of the French destroyers. In fact, it only shoots HE, and it's got a radar consumable. Plus, instead of having French 6-kilometer destroyers, which I think Fantasque does, this has Pan-European destroyers, Torpedoes, which are a little bit faster and certainly have longer range. We'll run down the stats. I'll talk about how the ship plays, but before we get to the stats, you should know that all the numbers I'm going to give you here are influenced by the commander build, which is Jerzy Swirsky, disguised as the Greek god Zeus. And of course, we have Sims and Rumble as inspirations. Sims is going to give us a little extra HP, Rumble a little extra range on the main battery guns, which, of course, we're going to fire those now at the Z-23, who is inside the cap with us. He, of course, has a powerful gimmick that can be useful for cap contesting, and that's the smoke sonar combo. But of course, in order for that to be effective, we would actually have to be inside of his sonar range, which we are not. The sonar range on that thing is only about 5 kilometers. On the other hand, we also have a very potent combination of consumables for contesting caps. We have the smoke screen and we have the radar. The Z-23 is well inside of our radar range. It's 8 kilometers. It's got a very short duration, though, at only 10 seconds, but a very quick reload time at 85.5 seconds, and it comes with 3 charges of the radar consumables, so that's quite nice. We could use that here to reveal the Z-23. I don't remember, actually, off the top of my head, if we're going to do that or not. Looks like we're turning in, getting the guns on the other side, but ultimately... Oh, we've already used the radar. I must have missed it. Apologies there. In any case, Z-23 is out of his smoke screen. We should be able to finish him off here with the help of our teammates. Anyway, now that we've talked about the radar and now that we're losing a little bit of HP to the Z-23, good to point out that we've got 19,260 HP with William Sims as an inspiration. Perhaps not the highest HP pool at the tier. In fact, I can tell you it's not. There are some destroyers that have over 20k. So this is a little bit on the lower side. The guns are certainly a highlight, though. We have 5 of them. They're 140mm guns, actually, and I think they have improved penetration compared to the typical DD guns. They may penetrate somewhere around 30mm of armor, which means you should be able to get more consistent damage against more heavily armored targets, like cruisers, for example. The guns have a range of 12.5 kilometers, but that is with Rumble as an inspiration, and the skill on Swirsky that increases the main battery range in the 3rd slot. I assume most people won't take that skill in favor of Twist and Track or Perceptive to get the little RPF indicator that shows you the direction of the nearest enemy ship, but I'm good with a little bit of extra range. Plus, that skill on Swirsky cuts down on the reload time a little bit too. So we have a 3-second reload time, and remember, of course, this is basically a Fantasque with big guns like Fantasque, but it gets a 3-second reload. I think Fantasque can achieve the same sort of reload, but it has to use the main battery reload booster consumable in order to do it. We just have that reload built in. And the maximum HE shell damage is much like that French destroyer, 2,000. That's pretty high numbers for HE alpha on a destroyer, and it's absolutely devastating combined with the reload time against enemy destroyers. Plus, you have the smokescreen and radar combo consumable to detect them. So, this is a very good vessel at taking out enemy destroyers. No AP, though, so there's no numbers to talk about there. And that is, I suppose, a little bit of a downside. AP on destroyers, especially destroyers with big guns like this, can be pretty useful, especially against light enemy cruisers. If we're able to get into a smoke screen and access the broadsides of a light enemy cruiser, then with AP, we might be able to citadel them. But of course, with HE, all we're going to be able to do is the HE penetrations and fires. We also have torpedoes, though, and they are the typical pan-European destroyers. You can launch them in one of those super narrow spreads. They travel at 76 knots in the water. They have a range of 8.5 kilometers. They don't hit super hard. 10,700 is the maximum damage. And of course, after things like torpedo reduction, each torpedo hit is probably going to do a couple thousand points less than 10k. So, not the most devastating things out there, but of course, they do cause floods and such. They reload in a very fast 75 seconds, and that's without building into them at all, so I don't see any reason to build into them. They have a sea detectability range that's actually pretty bad, 1.6 kilometers. We've got some AA defenses too. Frankly, I don't know how useful they are and haven't seen too many carriers. Actually, AA defenses just aren't all that useful. This is no Friesland, though, in any case. It's got a very low aggregate AA defense rating of 32, so I don't think it's going to be good at shooting down planes like some of the other pan-European destroyers. But being a French design, we do have excellent speed. 42.7 knots. Although keep in mind that is with the speed flag in the fourth flag slot. We've also got a very good turning circle of 640 meters and an excellent rudder shift time of 3.4 seconds. Concealment with Swirsky at the helm is 5.4 kilometers, which I'd say is good and competitive. So basically, this is more of a gun-focused destroyer than it is torpedoes, differentiating it from the other pan-European line of the Oyster Goatland variety, which is much more of a torpedo boat. And obviously, the torpedoes are still useful, but I think the idea here is to counter the enemy destroyers with your excellent gun power. And in the interest of that, there's Friesland, which we're using the radar to spot him. Swirsky has been given a new skill that reduces the main battery reload time while the radar is going on. And so even though you've only got about 10 seconds for the radar, the main battery reload time is reduced, at least at my level of Swirsky, which is rank 16 Legendary 2, by 8.5% while the reload is active. So that's pretty helpful. It's good at taking out enemy destroyers, and with that smokescreen and radar combo, there are situations you can get into, like the one with the Friesland, where he's running away from us. We're inside of the smokescreen, he can't see us, we radar him, and we're able to sink him. The smokescreen is also an interesting consumable for the pan-European destroyers. Most of them don't have the smokescreen, and the duration of this one is 89 seconds, so just over a minute. About almost a minute and 30 seconds, 1 second shy of that. So not quite as long duration as like the American smoke screens, for example. Certainly not as long duration as something like the Friesland, which I think does have an American smoke screen. Its duration, yeah, is 124 seconds, which is well over 2 minutes. So we're looking at more like a minute 30. Fairly long time for you to sit around and do a little bit of farming, but, well, not the longest in the game. Still useful for the smoke radar combo, And we've got an engine boost consumable that we can swap out for defensive AA if we want to. I don't know why we would want to swap it out for defensive AA, though, with numbers as bad as we have on the AA stats. The engine boost is just a standard destroyer engine boost with a 5% speed bonus. But with traveling over 40 knots to begin with, this will get you even further over 40 knots, so you can go quite fast, reposition, potentially do some open water gunboating and some dodging. Although we haven't really done that in this game, we've been doing more of the basics of going after the enemy destroyers. We're at quite low health now, but we're on 4 kills, and it's time to see if we can't land these torpedoes on the Atlantico, who is making a cardinal mistake. Don't sail in front of rocks like that. It makes your trajectory very predictable. It's not like the Atlantico can turn to the right, otherwise, he's going to drive straight first into a rock, and he's just going to have to go in a straight line, which takes him right in the path of the torpedoes, and there's the Kraken unleashed. If this game looks familiar to you, it's because it happened on one of my streams, but I've played the split quite a bit since then in order to get a sense of how it performs. And I just wanted to use this video because, it's a Kraken. You got to put it on YouTube, right? We take the capture circle. There's less than 4 minutes left to go in the game, and the battle is essentially won. The only remaining enemy is the CV, who I don't think has come after us really much at all in this battle. We certainly haven't shot down any planes for that matter, and it just so happens the CV's around this island. So we're at over 900 points now, and we're going to go see if we can deal some more damage to the CV before this game ends. Don't think we'll be able to do that, but that's all right. We've got the victory secured. In any case, this is most certainly a gunboat line. It's got a pretty overpowered combination of consumables between the smokescreen and the radar. I suppose having a short duration on the radar makes it a little bit less useful to your teammates, considering that it takes about 3 seconds or so for a radared ship to render and become shootable on your teammate's screen. That gives them, like 7 seconds to fire at the destroyer or the target you're spotting with the radar. So maybe enough time for 1 salvo for a cruiser or a battleship, couple salvos for destroyers. Not exactly the most utilitarian radar out there in terms of gathering intelligence data for your team, much more like a personal radar that allows you to counter enemy destroyers. I think this thing is a great cap contester, and I think it's frankly a little bit of a hybrid. It's obviously got great gun power, but we saw the torpedoes at work securing our Kraken against the Atlantico. I think this is a very powerful destroyer. To be fair, I haven't really played the rest of the line, but I can tell you that the rest of the line does not get radar until this tier. The Grom at tier 6 does not have radar. It's only the split, and then the tier 8 Katsanis, I believe it's called, which will not be released till the next update. In any case, as powerful as this thing is, basically a lay Fantasque with a bit of pan-European flavor instead. I think it's well worth grinding to once the line comes out of early access. It should be a very potent destroyer at the tier. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.